So, Mark, the results are in Dixville Notch.
Right.
These are the first results we've had, and we're going to be waiting on the rest of the results all night, but split 5-5. Does this forebode a long evening ahead?
Well, it's unnerving. I mean, I think the old New Hampshire saying is, as Dixville Notch goes, so goes Dixville Notch. So we shouldn't be, we should be wary of extrapolating too much for it. But it could be one of these things where it goes down not to 3 o'clock in the morning, but for 6-8 weeks of recounts and litigation. And if that's what that Dixville Notch vote means, we're in big trouble.
Yeah, so this is the town in New Hampshire, voted at midnight, 5 votes apiece. But it really could be that close. And now I've been saying anywhere from 270 electoral college votes to 320 for either candidate. That's how close some of the swing states are. What's your read on what we should be looking for?
I think it will be a Romney victory, but I do hope that it will be beyond the margin of lawyer, as I like to say, because I think if it is close, then it does mean we're into hanging chads and into. It's fascinating to me. I woke up this morning to the sight of the TV of lawyers moving into position at Pennsylvania precincts. The United States is the only country in the world in which election day is accompanied by the arrival of massed ranks of lawyers. I mean, even in Canada, where Quebec runs, by comparison with the rest of the country, stinkingly corrupt elections, you still don't have litigation baked into the cake from the dawn of election day. You don't have it in Australia, you don't have it in New Zealand. This idea that somehow it's all about suing and recounting and law, even before the first ballots are cast, is peculiar to America.
All right, so I'm hoping for a Romney win. You're predicting a Romney win. But what happens if it goes the other way? What happens if it's Obama? You've written After America, America Alone, about the fiscal cliff. Are you just going to hit the accelerator and jump off like Thelma and Louise?
Well, I'm torn, because an Obama second term would be great news for my book, which is basically the blueprint for an Obama second term, but bad news for everything else. And I don't want the United States to go off the cliff and drag down Canada and the rest of the Western world with it. But I think it would be actually a very serious. It's one thing to take a wild flyer on a crazy unknown candidate 4 years ago because he seems attractive and he offers you the opportunity to make an historic vote. It's one thing to do that in 2008. It's another thing entirely to re-elect him in 2012 after the last 4 years, and when he's run on a far more left-wing platform than Clinton did, and it would, in a sense, I think, be a vote for national collapse, for national suicide.
How? Let's get into a couple of concrete examples of how. We're talking about a president that's run trillion-dollar deficits every year. Does that just continue? Do the social programs in America start looking more like Sweden and less like America?
Well, you can't be a large Sweden. You can't. It's simply not possible. Insofar as big government works, it works in small northern countries with a relatively homogenous population of a few million, which is Sweden, Denmark, Norway, those kind of joints. You can't do it for 300 million people from Maine to Hawaii, and if you try to do it, you're inviting collapse on a scale unknown to man. America spends $188 million an hour that it doesn't have. Just in Washington, we're not talking about state or local, just in Washington, $188 million an hour, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The Obama national debt would be up to about $20 trillion about halfway through his second term. Nobody has been that broke in the history of the planet, and there is not enough money on the planet to continue funding those multi-trillion-dollar deficits. So at that point, two things happen. The most likely one is that the rest of the world decides that the dollar can no longer be the global reserve currency. The less likely one is that America would default on the world. But either way, America's over. That's the only thing, that's the only difference between the United States being difference between the US and Greece, and then below that actually Zimbabwe, is the fact that the dollar is the US dollar is the world's currency.
But talk to people that think, well, he's overstating, he's exaggerating now. What would you say to them?
You can't exaggerate. Nobody has spent on this scale. I mean, the T word, the trillion word, is a word that before the Obama era, you only ever found in astronomy books. It was for how many light years, trillion light years, planet Zongo was from Earth. It had no, you never used, if you were, basically, if you were standing on terra firma, you had no need of the trillion word. Obama has normalized the trillion word. And in the course of doing, I mean, what I don't, I caught the train from London to Brussels through the Channel Tunnel a few weeks ago. I'm not a big government guy, but you know, it was a fast French train that went at high speed, came out of the tunnel, roared through France, straight into Belgium, dropped me off in Brussels in a couple of hours. If you're going to have big government, a high-speed train going under the sea is something to show for it. Obama spent $6 trillion and has nothing to show for it. Now, I don't know what you're getting at Sun News, but imagine if you had $6 trillion, you went to the Royal Bank of Canada and persuaded them to lend you $6 trillion. And you spent it, and the Royal Bank said, can we have it back? Oh, and by the way, what did you spend it on? And you said, you had no idea. Where did that $6 trillion go? That's exactly what Obama did. He spent $6 trillion and left no trace.
We're both hoping for a Romney win. So what's the scenario if Romney does win? Does he have the strength of political capital to turn it around? Is it possible to turn it around?
I think it's very difficult to turn it around. I mean, I love the way his vice president, Paul Ryan, is regarded as the guy who's going to shove Granny off the cliff. In the Democratic Party ads, he's there putting Granny in the wheelchair and shoving her off the cliff. My problem with the Paul Ryan plan is that I don't think it's extreme enough. In a sense, he's presuming that he's got 10, 15 years to fix this thing. I think the United States has till mid-decade for serious course correction or it's over. So in other words, it's Romney or bust. If this guy gets into office and thinks, you know, we can just, instead of going over the cliff at full throttle like Obama wants to do, we can just go over the cliff in second gear, I think that will be a terrible waste of opportunity. Too often Republicans and conservatives, and that applies north of the border too, are in office but not in power. The one thing that Democrats and liberals have that conservatives need to learn from is that when they win elections, they don't waste time. They start reshaping the map in their favor from day one.
All right. Advice to Romney then is reshape the map, move quick?
Yeah, my advice to Romney is on that. The minute you finish taking the oath of office, go to the Oval Office, get to work. Those first 3 months need to demonstrate that the United States has the capacity for serious course correction.
All right, Mark Steyn, thanks so much.
Always a pleasure, Brian.